Hey everybody, welcome to the Cyber Monday Show. We have just an absolute banger in store today. But first, we have a huge surprise from Maekshyft.
Hi everybody. I was going to come on here and be like, I'm pregnant.
Well, dude, thank you for jumping on. So excited. We have just, a star, a cybersecurity stud here. Ladies and gentlemen, John Hammond. What's up?
Hey everyone, I am very flattered. Thanks so much for the super warm welcome.
Well, we were talking a little bit earlier, but for the people in the chat, it was not expected that you would have the longest beard.
I saw it in the tweet. I saw it on Twitter. It's like, is this a competition between who has the longest beard? And Make absolutely would have won. Maekshyft totally had it on lockdown, but I'm the victor now.
This is it.
See, that was the other surprise. That was going to be the initial surprise, but I'll just say I have shock factor.
Shaving carries that shock factor. That's for sure. Someone else commented, "Is this the redhead convention?" And I think that is valid.
I called us on Twitter the Ginger Snap Trio.
This is probably a more concerning development than we've seen in a long time. That three gingers get on a stream.
Three gingers walk into a bar.
Yeah, bad things. And everyone got sunburned. But John, thank you for jumping on. I really appreciate it. Sir, I'm sure everybody watching knows who you are. But in case, because YouTube's big, the internet's a big place. In case anybody hasn't met you yet, do you mind just kind of, introducing yourself and talking a little bit about, not only your time in cybersecurity, but your channel and all this stuff?
Absolutely. Hey, thanks so much for asking. Hello. My name is John Hammond. For my day job, right, for the stuff that kind of pays the bills, I work at a company called Huntress. We do managed threat detection and, acting as a cybersecurity vendor for protection and defense and better security to stop hackers and malware and all that bad stuff. That's a ton of fun. But on the side, I have a YouTube channel where I also try and showcase, cybersecurity content, whether it's capture the flag, competitions and events and war games, all those online like practice ranges, or conferences or interviews with people other in the industry. So, I don't know, just a fellow nerd, just a fellow geek. Super happy to be here.
I love it. And I'm so curious because I always love to hear people's answers. Whenever I find out that they got on YouTube, what got you? I've seen that you've been on YouTube for like 12 years, which is crazy. What got you into it and what's kind of kept you going all this time?
Oh, goodness. So I guess there are a whole lot of different ways to tackle it. Answering that question, to be honest, it's funny because I feel like when you're kind of a kiddo growing up, when I was anyway, I wanted to watch videos. I wanted to see YouTube people do stuff that I was interested in. And it was kind of fun, right? And when I was just a kiddo, right, it was like, oh, who's playing like Halo or who's playing Modern Warfare, Call of Duty, all those shenanigans. And people would have like, I know, it's like, it's a common thing, right? They would have commentary. They would have like people just, narrating or talking about their life over gameplay footage. And that was kind of cool, but I don't know how well that would map to content. I don't know, because I wasn't going to be recording and uploading and playing like Call of Duty because I wasn't that good at it. I thought for like at some point I was like, oh, what if I just did like code commentaries, because it was kind of cheesy. The way that I wanted to learn programming and get into computer science and all this was watching YouTube videos. So I thought, well, maybe I could just try and do that and maybe commentate or narrate over it. And eventually it turned into tutorials. And eventually it turned into capture the flag. And now it's kind of explored in some other avenues between, looking at cheesy malware samples or poking around in the dark web or chatting with other industry people. So kind of a snowball effect, but I have fun with it. It's a passion.
I love it. And one of the things that I know I've noticed for myself at least, but I've noticed in other people as well that are, if they do blogs or, they create some sort of content like this, right? It really helps to learn, right? How has this helped you learn, not only, like you said, CTFs and kind of some of these things as like you said, as it's evolved over time, have you noticed that this has accelerated kind of that learning process?
Oh, absolutely. It's so interesting. Like when you share what you're doing, or you kind of show your work, or you just document the whole process? Because I'll be painfully transparent and honest with some of the videos that I try to produce. Like, look, I'm not good at this. Like, I suck. I'm still trying to learn. I'm still trying to get better. And it's fun to see in the comments, or see, the audience response, the community that says, "Hey, John, you could have done that a little bit better if you would use this tool, or have you heard of this technique or this trick or some silly thing?" And with a lot of my videos, I try to showcase the raw experience. Like, there's not a whole lot of video editing. There's not a whole lot of pizzazz, flashy animations or anything. It's just a screencast. It's just, hey, me showing what's happening on my computer. So oftentimes I'll like make mistakes and hit backspace like 17 times, or type the wrong command, or completely forget something. So I like having the internet tell me when I'm wrong so I can get better.
That is so brave.
And I'm going to jump in here too and say, I as somebody who, I've watched some of your videos. I won't sit back and say I've watched all of them, because there's a ton. But no, I as somebody who's consumed a number of YouTube videos, like, I like watching when somebody, goofs up and they've got a backspace or whatever. Like, it's just like there's like a human aspect to that I really kind of enjoy. It's not just like they got everything right the first time, because then it, as somebody who's not that good sits back and watches that and goes, this dude just knows everything. Like, it's almost like it kind of starts building on a little bit of that imposter syndrome. You're like, oh my gosh, like, this guy knows everything. I'm never going to know that. If you see the human aspect, you're like, he goofed up just like I do.
Which is surprising to me, because sometimes I always feel like, hey, you go to YouTube, you kind of want some of the like flashy thumbnails. It's high energy. It's like crazy people having some fun, but with flashy animations and with B-rolls and with like drone footage, right? I'm not doing that. But I don't know. I'd love to be able to package up and like tie it with a bow and like make a really pretty education presentation for people. And there are plenty of channels that do an exceptional job at that. And I'm honestly a little bit jealous. I know, but the editing that it takes, the time commitment, the investment, you guys know, like, that's really hard and really time consuming.
A little bit, but I mean, kind of to your point with like educational content, and I mean, stuff as dense as this.
Yeah.
I feel like adding like the flashy B-roll and stuff like that it can be a little distracting. So and that's kind of one of the things that I really like about your videos, is that it's to the point, but it's simplistic enough that it's not distracting. You're focusing on the content, and it's interesting. It's interesting concepts. Like, you just did like a kiosk series that was pretty interesting to explore as well. I've noticed, you've been doing some interviews lately with some other folks as well, and I feel like before recently I hadn't noticed you doing interviews. Is this like a new thing that you've been diving into as well?
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah. So I appreciate you keeping up with the kiosk videos and all. That was kind of fun to put together and play with. Honestly, the recent interviews are and I'll be totally transparent and honest here. Some of that is, hey, I got to have some love for sponsorships for the people that help the channel be supported. And that's just, hey, an honest thing. I don't think there's any shame in that. Like, it's great if our creators can be compensated for the work that they do. And some of them are also, and if you actually explore through more of that interviews playlist, it's like, hey, what happens when you're chatting with a cybersecurity recruiter? Like, what is the industry? What is the marketplace? What does the job market really wants for an individual, or how do they consider your resume, or how do they see CVEs, et cetera, et cetera. I hope that I bring in some of those conversations just as well.
Yeah.
And hey, other people that are running their own like capture the flag stuff. I think there was some conversation with like even the Try Hack Me founders some time ago, cyberstakes or CTF developers and authors. I hope I can get a good breadth of all those different things you might find in cybersecurity.
Yeah. And some of the interviews that I saw, and I've learned a lot about you watching some of these interviews, because they're really good. You did one with Network Chuck that was pretty good. You had one Sunday with DC CyberSec that was also pretty good too. One of the things you mentioned, is kind of like what got you into cybersecurity, and kind of, I guess, your process. I hope this is oversharing. I think we're the same age. I'm 25.
Yeah. I'm 25 too.
This gave me like huge. Well, I say this.
Why am I so old?
Old. I'm just kidding.
I'm
That's me.
Hey,
so old.
You got your dentures with you, my man?
I mean, they're in, but
This is the
like I'm
roast
gonna be
of
turning
Maekshyft,
32
man.
this year, man. Come on.
Yeah, Make,
I'm
you thought you
joking.
could hide behind your beard, but not anymore.
I got nothing. I can hide behind my stubble.
Yeah. But I mean, you have like a million certifications, and it's just like I feel like that kind of like reflects not only your passion for the industry, but like your love for learning. And I feel like it's also another like indicator of that was, you mentioned that you started off in the Coast Guard Academy, which is not easy to get into. So, I guess what's motivated you to continue to learn things and really at a pace that it's probably is difficult to sustain.
Oh, well, I mean, hey, thank you. And I appreciate, I don't know, that the curiosity there. I don't know. I wish I could put my finger on, hey, what it is, or I like to hope, I like to think, hey, I've got some drive, I've got some ambition and tenacity, but it's something that you juggle and weigh in one way or the other, right? Because you mentioned, hey, that can be pretty tough to maintain. You run into burnout, you run into imposter syndrome. I've got this weird complex where I'm thinking, look, I only have a finite amount of time to do stuff, and that's already probably dwindling. Like, hey, I have 2 dogs, right? I like to make sure that I can kind of keep them supported and alive. I'm not married yet. I don't have kids, but I know that that's going to happen. Oh, I'll probably have to get a house at some point, and I'll have to take care of all that stuff. And like, wait a second, I should like shower today. Oh, probably eat food too. Don't have time to get the stuff done.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I've always had this sort of like cannonball mentality of like, cool, let's crank out some studying, let's crank out some new exam or test or certification thing, because there's going to be a point where I'm not able to do that anymore. And that's not to say, hey, the folks in those situations are maybe struggling with time management just as well. That's not to say that you can't. It's just I'm sure it's tough to squeeze things in. So yeah, again, not leading into the whole grinding mentality and the hustle and any of that shenanigans. It's just like I want to be able to stay up late and do stuff, because eventually I'm not going to be able to anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel that. And I think I'm, applause to that. I think that's awesome.
Thanks.
Do you use like productivity apps? Is that like a thing that you do, or is it really just kind of like force of habit? Like, you've kind of set your routine and you don't really have to rely on like an app or a book or anything like that to kind of keep it going.
No, I really wish that I had something that would keep me in line, because I put on a pretty good front. Maybe I have everyone fooled that I've got it all together, but no, I'll oversleep. I'll totally forget to eat. Right, like I know I'm chasing one deadline after the next and trying to get stuff done, and again, always feel like, man, I'm falling behind. I haven't got some new content out, or I haven't made challenges for a CTF that we have upcoming, something silly like that. But putting that pressure on me keeps me wanting to, hey, go do it. I think the best I've tried to keep myself organized is like a Google Sheets, like an Excel spreadsheet of like, oh, this obligation is due at this time, and it's whatever priority or whatever. But I'm really not good at it.
I feel you. I feel like you're a step ahead of me with the Google Sheets. I have like a reminders app, but I got to get it more organized.
Well, hey,
So
it's always continuous learning and continuous growth. So
yeah, for sure.
So, I mean, obviously, anybody that knows you knows that you're an excruciatingly busy person. Have you ever dealt with burnout before? And like, how did you go about kind of bringing yourself out? Because obviously, like, we've talked about burnout on this show before. We've talked about it in our server, and how damaging it can actually be. Like, if you don't, once you're dealing with the burnout, finding a way to slowly get yourself back out and get yourself motivated again to then start doing stuff, and you don't just fade off. Like when you dealt with burnout, if you have, how did you go about getting yourself back into it?
Oh, totally. Yeah. I probably wrestle and grapple with burnout more than I don't know. again, it happens a lot in all reality. And I, again, still kind of at maybe a young age, right? When I realize like I'm at the end of my rope, I'm burning the candle at both ends. I don't know how much longer I can just kind of keep hard charging away. I'll go play video games, right? Like, all right, let me play Super Smash Brothers for a little bit to just like let my mind melt. Ganondorf is my main for anyone that's asking.
No.
You just got Meg. You had him so excited. Now he's just oh man.
I was like, yes, Super Smash Bros. One of us. All of a sudden you said Ganondorf. I was like, no.
But that's one end of the spectrum, because I've thought to myself at some points, again, with that like crazy cannonball mentality, oh man, screw burnout, right? I don't need any of that crap. That's just wasting more time. I'm going to get that word out of my vocabulary. Burnout doesn't exist. I eat burnout for breakfast. I think I like legitimately tweeted that some time ago. And those are the weeks, right? Like, hey, I'm trying to stay up crazy late to manage all the stuff that I want to be able to do. And I'd go to bed at like 4 a.m, 5 a.m. That means I wake up at noon, which sucks. And it cuts into you trying to actually do like your job for one thing. And I remember vividly like falling asleep at the keyboard. Hey, I'll go take a break. Let me go sit on the couch with the dogs, fall asleep on the couch. It's like, man, this isn't going to work. So in the point of, hey, trying to push burnout away from you, it doesn't work. It's going to catch up to you and it's going to suck. So take the time to chill out, relax, decompress, even if it's just, hey, give me an hour to go play video games or sleep. That's what I tend to fall victim to.
Yeah, I love it. And I think that's so good. And I think it helps me personally as well to kind of see that it's not just like a me thing, that, like the burnout, it's, it's not like an on or off switch. It just kind of like, it's, almost like one of those like dials that you just kind of have to keep below a certain threshold. I feel like, at least that I've noticed with myself. And there are just some times that it spikes, and there are some activities that will cause it to plummet, and that's a great thing. But then again, too much of that will dilute its effectiveness. You know what I mean?
Totally.
But anyway, now we're diving a little bit too much into a rabbit hole. Speaking of something that maybe for some may cause burnout, but also may reduce burnout, CTFs. You've got, some excellent content on it. What got you into CTFs and kind of what's kept you going with CTFs?
Oh, thank you. So I am truthfully kind of fading away from it, and I wish I weren't. But I used to produce and put out a whole lot of capture the flag videos on my YouTube channel where I would showcase, hey, trying to solve a challenge or working through some cybersecurity task or puzzle, right? The way that I got into it was honestly kind of as you alluded to. Hey, I went to the United States Coast Guard Academy for my undergraduate, and they had this thing that was happening with all the other military institutions between Naval Academy, Annapolis, West Point, over Military Academy, others, etc. That was like a cyber stakes, and it was kind of advertised and promoted as like, oh, the cybersecurity Olympics, right? You compete in these different sort of categories of games, whether it's cryptography, whether it's web application security, binary exploitation, forensics, blah blah blah. And that sounded really cool and sounded really fun because I was studying electrical engineering because they didn't have a computer science or cybersecurity degree. So I wanted to go play in that thing because it sounded kind of interesting. There was an online qualifier that was fun. I was like, hey, I can solve a couple of these. I know a little bit of coding back at that point. And I guess I did okay enough that they wanted to bring me to like the physical in-person event that was like the competition. And what I didn't know at the time was that was a capture the flag competition. I just didn't realize that that's what it was. But it was something we're like, all right, we showed up and we played, but we didn't really do all that well. If we're looking at some of the binary exploitation challenges, we could open up a file in like objdump or the objdump command, but we didn't know what the heck Ghidra was or IDA was or any of these S-Trace and L-Trace and any debuggers and disassemblers and stuff. So I remember asking the organizers of that event, who were members of like the For All Secure organization and some team members of theirs that are part of the Plaid Parliament of Poning CTF team, or PPP. Again, had zero clue that that's like one of the best teams in the world. And I was literally having dinner with Tyler Nicewander, who's, hey, crazy cool, renowned hacker, CTF player. I had no idea. And he said, like, yeah, if you guys want to get better at this, if you guys want to practice, you can go to like ctftime.org, or you can play Over the Wire, Smash the Stack, some of these other online war games. And I'm like, oh man, this is super cool, because this like opened the floodgates. This was hey, the water's loose from the dam. Like, this is going to be super cool. This is a ton of fun, and I'm just really enjoying it. So that is certainly what put me on that track of capture the flag. Sorry, that was a long-winded story. My bad.
No,
that's great. I think that's awesome. I mean, you mentioned some of the tools, and I'm like, yeah, heck, I don't even know what those are. There's a debate that I keep seeing on at least on cybersecurity Twitter, and I feel like you're probably pretty familiar with it. And I know I say debate on cybersecurity Twitter, and we all know it's going to be controversial, right? But CTFs, the premise is CTFs versus realism as if they're polar opposites of each other, or two opposite, or it's binary, right?
Yeah.
I guess one, is that a premise that you agree with, and B, can CTFs be made realistic in a well, that sounds like a silly question, but I hope you kind of get where I'm headed.
Absolutely.
Like, yeah.
I know this war well, right? The battle when folks are saying, hey, are CTFs realistic or not? If you're getting into like the idiosyncrasies and corners and crevices of how some cryptographic algorithm works, maybe you don't need to know that or do any part of that for your job as a sysadmin or something, or like a pen tester, etc. You don't need to be trying to solve any like steganography puzzles, trying to guess at some obscure esoteric thing for your job as like, hey, forensics analyst, digital responder, right? And I think that is sort of right, kind of, to a point. CTFs can be unrealistic in that, yeah, some of those silly examples where you're just kind of solving a puzzle, you've got a nerd's Rubik's Cube in front of you. Maybe it's not extremely transferable to what you do for your day-to-day job. I think that there are a lot of capture the flag games and events that are pushing towards more legitimate, like bug bounty, like web hacking and web application security and things that could genuinely affect an organization, company, website. And then you see different framing of that, of like a red team versus blue team game that, dude, you're literally penetration testing. You're literally trying to find vulnerabilities that an organization might genuinely have. And I think those absolutely transfer to your real world day job. And that's where I absolutely love and want to celebrate, because yes, the technical skills, you cutting your teeth and you're kind of getting your chops with capture the flag. Not only does that teach you that hands-on, like practical application stuff, but you learn the tenacity, you learn the grit, you learn the determination and the stubbornness that you say, no, like there's a problem in front of me. I want to solve it. I want to figure out the answer. I want to learn more, and I want to move on to the next thing. I think that is one invaluable skill that capture the flag teaches, and absolutely applies to real life.
Yeah, I think that's such a good point. Like, it's an intangible. It's not necessarily like the technical aptitude. It's the grit, the perseverance that kind of ties into it. I guess all together, as a researcher, how do CTFs kind of help with your day-to-day job? Not only from like an intangibles perspective and kind of being able to, keep at the mission until you are able to kind of find what you're looking for, but also from like a familiarization standpoint and being familiar with some of the different tools, some of the different languages that you might be running into, algorithms. Does it help kind of familiarize before you run into things in the real world?
So yes, absolutely, like 1,000%. I work right as a security researcher, quote unquote, which is like, hey, you just kind of explore stuff and tinker and play, and that's your job, which is the best thing in the world, by the way. uh, and it is, hey, trying to protect some organizations and businesses and companies and stop malware and stop hackers and see what they're doing to maintain access and then get them out. So when it comes to taking capture the flag skills and applying that towards that more blue team and defense aspect, it's awesome because in reality, and at least I think so, a lot of malware analysis is you're finding eventually some program binary application that is bad, like known bad. Hey, and it doesn't have to be super deep in the weeds. Like you could say, hey, we eventually will get to Mimikatz or like an XMR rig or some coin miner or cryptocurrency miner. And that can be bad because antivirus kind of picks up on it. Once it's unraveled and kind of all the layers and stages that try to hide it, get out of the way, we can say this is bad and that's good enough to tell the person you have malware, we need to clean this. But all the tricks and kind of, mouse traps and silly things that the malware authors might wrap around that bad, evil program because they're trying to hide it. They're trying to have it camouflage. They're trying to masquerade it behind all these things. That's a lot of those living off the land techniques, right? Things of your operating system to tuck it away so no one can find it. The skills that you learn in Capture the Flag help you find it. They let you cut through those weird, like silly language tricks that they might be doing, or some of the techniques to, hey, get around some sort of setting or configuration in the Windows operating system or the Windows registry, et cetera, et cetera. I absolutely would agree. When you get into some of it, it just feels like a CTF. If it's totally okay, I'll shill for a little bit. We have a blog post that's coming out tomorrow that I helped write and put together, and it was like, hey, we're tracking down like an APT, like advanced persistent threat, and as you uncover this, is like, this feels like a CTF. It feels like I'm playing a Capture the Flag to go stop whatever crazy nation state hacker.
That's awesome. And for people that are watching this on replay, that will already be out. So definitely be looking for that on Huntress Labs, correct?
Yes. Thank you. Yeah, my employer is huntress.com/blog can get you there.
Perfect. So kind of going from what you've been saying, it sounds like blue teamers would benefit a lot from CTFs and not just, people that are aspiring to be a pen tester, a red team, or a bug bounty hunter.
Absolutely. And again, I got to ask, hey, what are you guys up to these days? Because are you leaning more red team? Are you leaning more blue team? They go hand in hand, right?
Yeah. Well, Mick, I'll let you go first. I've been talking too much.
So I mean, I'm very much like my blue team is my 9 to 5. And then I'm trying to start getting back into the dabbling of the pen testing hacking stuff on the side. Yeah, I mean, it's tough too, because it's like there's certifications that I want to go after that are more geared towards the hacking side of things. But then, like, I know after talking to my director, he's like, well, he goes, there's a lot of certifications that we want you and your other coworkers to get that are more blue team. I'm like, fantastic. But yeah, you got to know in kind of conjunction what you were saying, Caleb, is, like you have to know blue teaming to be really good at red teaming, and you have to know red teaming to be really good at blue teaming. Like they both go hand in hand. So
yeah, I'm kind of similar to Make, blue team 9 to 5, kind of interested in the red teaming side of things. But I mean, I also kind of, the more I learn about not only red teaming but just the industry as a whole, the more I'm kind of realizing that purple team is probably a more appropriate term for it, because there's always going to be some blue team duties, regardless of even if I get onto a red team. So yeah, that's just kind of where I'm at, where I've been kind of focusing my studies. So
that's awesome. Yeah. I think it's funny because like everything that I've always kind of been doing and leading up to has been traditionally like a red team, right? Like I'm going after offensive security certifications. I'm going after like capture the flag that makes you into a hacker or a pen tester. But to be honest, bringing it towards better defense and now a stronger security posture is, for one thing, really, really cool, really, really fun, because now you know all those ways in, right? And the shenanigans that hackers can do. And it's really fulfilling in my mind, because if you know you're up against a real adversary now, if you know their stuff trying to just bang on your windows and knock down doors, then if you're defending against that, it's like, wow, it really takes it out of the game aspect when we gamify cybersecurity, whether we're playing a CTF or we're doing a tabletop exercise. It's not a game anymore. Like real threats, real malware, real things that do real harm, right? So I think it's
neat. There's something that you just said that I hadn't even thought about it, because I've always kind of thought gamified learning is the coolest thing. And especially that we can have that in cybersecurity, that can be, one of the, I guess, theories that we can, the educational theories that we can utilize to get people interested in the field, like CTFs, for example. I think that's stellar. And I wish that more industries could find ways to implement gamified learning. I wish that we could implement gamified learning in other elements of cybersecurity, not just for like the hacking, I guess you could say, but something that just popped into my brain is, at what point, can gamified learning kind of make us forget that some of this is actually malicious, that the viruses and the malware is designed to cause harm. And in some cases, like with critical infrastructure or, so unnamed current events that might be going on or that are going on, some of it is actually, it's malicious beyond just cyber. It can actually inflict physical damage. Can gamified learning in a way kind of distract us from that? Or is it a trade-off that we're making to kind of get familiarized with the tools, that way we can deploy ourselves to those environments? That's a big question.
It is. It really is.
I just put that together.
TLDR.
That's a broad question. So sorry about that.
No, I think it's an interesting sense of like maturity isn't the right word, but probably the closest towards it. When you like know and understand, like, hey, I'm going to be goofing off and playing capture the flag and doing these tabletop exercises to role play out when the nightmare scenario hits. Because when it does, hey, we want to be prepared. We want to be the best. We want to be the strongest, etc. All the while knowing once stuff hits the fan, all right, now it's real. Like now we're up against a real adversary. And again, not to like totally make this a heavier conversation. Whoops. But like ransomware, dude, like significant damage. And sure, it's one thing to have that happen at, hey, maybe a mom and pop shop, or what about schools? Like we've seen kind of the effects of that. What about a dentistry place? What happens when ransomware hits a hospital? Yeah. Suddenly our silly thing that we used to do on the keyboard is like a real matter of life and death. So I don't know. Sorry, again, didn't mean to be all like doom and gloom here.
No, I think that's kind of a good reminder that, oftentimes I'll forget, frankly, because it's, we're focused on it's always kind of that age old battle between like the tactical and the strategic. Yeah. Where if you're narrowing down too much, you forget the big picture, and if you're looking at the big picture too much, you forget, the real ground level stuff. So I think that's good. Pivoting a little bit with kind of going back to education and certifications. We
went off on another rabbit hole, didn't we?
Yeah. Well, no, frankly, we're hitting it all. I love it.
Totally.
With what, I'm going to ask kind of a two-part question. What's your favorite certification that you've gotten? And then what would you say was the most helpful certification that you got?
Oh, goodness. What if they're the same?
Hey, yeah, great if they're the same.
I don't know. I have to admit, right? And you had mentioned like, hey, John, you have like way too many certifications.
No thing.
one of my absolute favorite ones, like one of my favorite memories from even just studying and going through some of those training materials and education. The offensive security stuff, and I know that's a hot topic, right? But offensive security and their experienced penetration tester, kind of a recent one they came out with, OSEP. That gets into a lot more, evasion techniques, and getting into like, if you were to try and maneuver around an Active Directory environment, and if you were to try and bypass antivirus, etc., some of that cool stuff. I remember very, very vividly, they were showcasing like how you can compile and run C# code like with an inline PowerShell. And there are a lot of different ways to do it. There's kind of some tricks here and there. But one of the commandlets that you can run will just leave some artifacts and some fingerprints out on the file system that, hey, this command was used to compile some .NET assembly unmanaged code inside, or managed code. And I remember, like, during the same week that I was learning about that and watching the videos and going through it, I remember seeing those files at work in an environment that's just like, there's like random letters and then a .0 and then a .cs or C# code, right? But also an out file or an error file, etc. And I was like, whoa, well, these look super weird. But now I know, because from what I just kind of learned, hey, that I understand where that comes from, and I understand what was actually happening on the system beforehand. And that was really, really cool. I think it was awesome to kind of see, and I'm sure you know that feeling, something that you're learning just for the sake of learning suddenly be really applicable and, again, tangible for the work that you do on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah. 1000%. 1000%. I think that's so good. Tied to this question, just by fact of, we're talking about coding languages, right?
Yeah.
I can't remember if it was with Network Chuck or with DC that they asked, do you need to know how to code to be in cybersecurity? Another one of those hot button, spicy cybersecurity Twitter questions that you just see all the time, right? And I really liked your answer, and I kind of wanted to get your feedback again on that question, because I just feel like the more people hear that would be just extremely helpful as well.
Cool. Okay, so the tee up is, hey, is programming and coding really necessary for a career in cybersecurity? Is that?
Yep.
Yeah. So there are so many cool and fun questions that are like this. It's like, hey, is a degree really necessary? Are certifications really necessary? And I would say no, with an asterisk. You don't have to know how to code or program, but it has a big footnote. It has a big disclaimer, because you can continue and go, hey, have a merry, jolly career without sort of that know-how, that info, but it will help you even more so if you do know a little bit of programming and the concepts and the scripting behind it. I think the analogy that I drew, and I don't know if this is the one that you're thinking of, it's like, cool, you can walk, like you're walking just fine, you're still moving, making forward motion if you kind of continue your career without some of those. But once you pick up it's a programming language, you're in Golang, you're in Python, you're in JavaScript, I don't know, then you're starting to run, you're making much faster forward motion, and you're just bettering yourself and everyone around you. So I think that's a great option, totally an option, not necessary, but really, really good to do.
I love it. And I think that's so good. What people use to write code is Vim or Nano. And as Colonel Panic asked in the chat, Vim or Nano? I
have to admit, I grew up in Nano, and I would probably opt to use it rather than Vim. Now I'm just one of those people.
Make what do you think?
I'll probably just stick with Nano as well. I've heard too many bad horror stories about Vim.
Same here as well. I don't even think I've seen somebody use Vim twice, because they don't even exit the first time. So
one of my very close friends was Vim all the way for a long time. And suddenly, somehow, he just started to play with Emacs, and now he's Emacs all the way. I was like, what? You just went off the deep end fully.
See, I was gonna say, if I had to have my option, I'm excruciatingly bland. I prefer gedit.
Yeah.
If I'm being honest.
I
It's
use
just,
Sublime Text. Like,
yeah, it's so much easier for me to just go in there. I already have like the GUI and everything. I just click save and then I'm done. Like,
You know, real ones use Apple Notes, and I'm not budging.
yikes.
fair enough.
I'm just kidding. I love it. Oh no!
Camera has decided that I will no longer be a person, apparently.
You are just an empty, sad battery.
Now you guys are getting the front. So
Love it. Love it. That chair looks comfy, by the way.
it was, but now I feel like I've been in here for too long. It's like the thing's going to break.
Okay, this is an interesting question, and I want to get your input. I've never asked anybody else this question, like ever, anytime.
Mhm.
What is the attrition rate for seats for you guys at your desks? And you know, do you have like a specific kind of chair that you look for? I'll John, I'll let you go first, and then you can follow.
I probably can't realistically sit in this for more than like 4 or 5 or 6 hours, and I really shouldn't to begin with, right? Get up and like walk around. But again, I really like Secret Lab, and I know you were just showcasing it there, Make. I haven't had one. I don't know. Is it wonderful? Is it great? Is it life changing?
I will tell you. So I bought a computer chair a while back, and sitting in it, you know, if I'm sitting in it for upwards of around 4 hours, it's fine. But anything after that, it's like the seat starts to get a little uncomfortable. Like the arms, you know, like are just like a hard plastic. So you're just resting your arms on this plastic the entire time. And there was, you know, like the back cushion was, you know, it was obnoxious. It was not even like a lumbar support. It was just, I don't know, just drove me nuts. And I went over to my buddy's house and he had a Secret Labs. And he's like, dude, by far the best computer chair I've ever sat in. And I go to sit in and I'm like, I've been tainted. I've been spoiled now. And now like I sit in this and it is by far the most comfortable chair. Like I'm like you, John, you know, like I get up, I try to move around, you know, and everything. But if I had to, I could easily sit in this chair for upwards of 8 hours. It's that comfortable for me.
Chad is making fun of us. Chad is like, hey, this is an ad, not sponsored.
Yeah, right. This video is brought to you by the chair company. I wonder if that's an actual company name. Yeah, I had a chair kind of like that. And then I got this one. And because we've already got Savage for ads, I'm not going to name it, but it's super comfortable. And now people are going to want to know what it is. But I like to kind of leave some air of suspense, you know? Going back to okay, I need to start writing some questions down as they pop into my brain, because sometimes a question pops up and it ties into a previous like 2 threads ago, and so we end up, as far as topics, you know, we're just ping-ponging around. But somewhat back to CTFs, I guess you could say somewhat back to, you know, just learning in general, is note-taking. Do you have a preferred note-taking app?
Jerk.
So I have traditionally, again, kind of just been using Obsidian. I think I don't know if some folks are a big fan of that one. Yeah. I know folks like Notion. I know folks like Joplin, Cherry Tree, etc. I just like Obsidian. Honestly, sometimes I'll just be in Sublime Text in a readme.md like Markdown file. And I'm trying to be better about pushing to like a GitHub Pages website. When you know you create a GitHub repository, it'll automatically let you put that up as a website. And I want to get more into, hey, okay, here's an actual blog or a collection of my notes to make that accessible for people. But if folks hadn't done that before, that might be something cool to help help start showing your work and documenting all the cool stuff you're doing. Why not just, make your notes something that other people can look through if you think that's helpful. I don't know. But Obsidian for me. Sorry, long-winded answer.
I love it. No, I mean, Make and I are kind of the same way with Obsidian.
Sweet.
Yeah, I've started using it more in recent years, but I definitely understand like the want or need to go more towards the GitHub page, because it's like that way you can access it from anywhere you're at. You know, like you don't have to specifically be at your computer, you know. Like I think we were even talking about this on another episode where like they actually have an Obsidian app for your phone.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah. So
I
you can
learned
like
that
actually
too.
link your vaults.
Yeah, it blew my mind. Yeah,
Yeah.
but I think it's like a paid thing. There's another workaround is you can just like put like your vault in like a cloud provider and
Right.
I
then
did
access
that.
that way. Yeah, vibes.
I
But
may or may not have used box.com. I will leave that to the imagination.
Kind of going back, a bit as well with just learning how to do things, because I feel like learning how to do things, we're always doing it, right? But with learning how to take notes, is this something that you just learned by obviously practice, but was there something that you like, did you see somebody else take notes in a certain style that resonated with you? How has that kind of evolved over time?
I'll probably be the first to admit I don't think I'm all that good at taking notes. I would like to try, and this is the benefit of Obsidian, right? Is that you're able to kind of link one page to another and have it, hey, organically kind of keep growing that cool way. When I would work through like offensive security certifications or other things that I'm just trying to learn through a training course, I'll try and take notes in Obsidian, and then whenever, honestly, if I'm just watching a video or if I'm going through slideshow content, I'll try and like regurgitate or rewrite basically as much as I can everything that they said in notes. That forces me to like listen to every minute, listen to every second, listen to like literally every word that's said, and try to cram it down. And then I'm able to, go build and put these pointers and arrows to different locations and other notes and other resources and references to go explore through. Obsidian, again, is fantastic because if you know one thing or one word, maybe something, you can search through all of your notes, no matter what page you're on or looking specifically. So throughout the entirety of a certification exam, you can use that as a reference, right? And then you can, I remember I need to bypass Defender, but I don't remember the syntax or whatever PowerShell or command prompt syntax to do that with. Let me just Control Shift F, bypass Defender, and then you can pull it up no matter where it was and how it was referenced. And that is something that I think is really great, because I will always remember just like a single word. I'm like, oh, I have to do this thing, but I don't remember how. That's a godsend for sure.
I love it. And I guess, kind of tying like the notes that you've built up over time, right? And all the certifications that you've taken notes for. Do you reference those often with work? Has that come in handy day to day, or is it really, you just kind of find like it's good to kind of get those reps in, and you kind of close that, move on to the next thing, and you don't really go back to it too much?
Yeah, for me, it is more of the latter. In all honesty, I don't know if folks may be in a different situation, but for a lot of and this is probably very selfish, but a lot of the new learning activities or certifications I'd like to go through are just kind of for me to learn something new that's fun and exciting, and not what I tend to do for my day job. So there might be some scraps here and there that I do reference for work, but it's funny if I get into like some of the crazy wild binary exploitation from like OSED or from buffer overflows and some of the different things like that. It's like I probably haven't touched that since I went through that course, however long ago. And that's just the nature of the beast, right? You're always doing different things and something else.
Mm-hmm. I love it.
What about you? Are you guys always kind of digging into your notes, or?
Yeah,
Basically.
When I have when I know I have notes, because I'm, like I said, I'm still building up on mine right now. But yeah, I mean, if I know that I've got something in my notes, I'm definitely referring to them, but 95% of the time, like I'm sure everybody else does, I'm always referring to Google, Google is a good one.
Yeah. The ultimate note repo is Google, right?
Uncle Google.
Yeah,
Totally.
I mean, and obviously there's times too where it's like, oh, okay, well, I use this for this particular, CTF or room or whatever, and I'll copy and paste that into my notes and just be like, okay, this was used to do this, just as a reference. But yeah, it's 9 times out of 10, it's Google.
Here's an interesting question, and I'll just put this out there for both of you guys.
Okay.
this is often said, you know, whenever people ask I'm going to say like a silly question, you know, like you know, you could a Googleable question. We'll just say that, you know, and then people say Google it. But then whenever you get to like more technical things where let's say you've built the repetition of Googling it, but you know, maybe it's kind of intermediate where, yeah, you could probably get away with asking it, but you could also Google it too. I'm going to ask just a general broad question that's more theory. How do you Google?
I've never been asked this question before. How do you do that?
You stumped him.
Some of these are just like popping into my brain. I'm kind of like, that's kind of a good one.
Here, I'll go first. I'm going to be
Okay.
honest with you. I'm not great at Google dorking. It's something that needs to be worked on. But half the time, like if I have like a general idea of what I'm trying to accomplish, I will just start typing in either like, how do you do this? Or like keywords that I feel will help me get there, you know, and then maybe I'll just start opening a bunch of different, you know, links and tabs, and I'll just start going through them. And then maybe I'll read something in there that'll be like, okay, reading this, I can kind of refine, you know, my question or my search a little bit more. So, but that's usually honestly how I end up Googling.
I think I'm in a similar place. I don't really use Google Docs all that often unless I just happen to know, oh, this was from some tweet however long ago, and I'll be like, hey, site:twitter.com, and then hope for the best. But honestly, I'm also very similar in like, oh, I'll try to put together keywords, maybe the language, the library, or whatever problem or kind of software that I know I'm up against. A lot of times I will Google the error messages or specific things. Okay, like the program or the application is returning out to me if that's what I'm up against, or generally just, okay, how to prepare or build or do, etc. I try to avoid the how to prefix, but sometimes it works well. And for folks that may or may not have seen a video of mine, when I do a Google search, I'll like hold down the control key on my keyboard and click on every single page so that I can every single result, and it'll open up in different tabs, because I'll just cruise through each of them and see which of them most rapidly can get me the info that I wanted as quick as possible.
Have you ever done that and it just like crashes your browser?
Not yet, but I'm sure it will.
That's good. That's a good thing.
I'm pretty good about tab management. I know people that like will never get rid of like their 1,000 tabs open, but surprisingly, I've somehow survived.
Here's a good one. How many tabs do you generally have open on average, like at any given point in time?
Ooh, I know you see some people's computer screens where you can't see the text of the window that it's on. You can just see the icon. I am not that bad. If it gets to like a sliver of like the text of the window, then I'm like, all right, I need to clear out some of these tabs. But you have people that's like a stacked like set of cards, isn't it?
And I've seen it because, you know, with like work, I'll you know, we'll share screens and walk through something, right? And I'll see them and they know exactly which tab they need to go to.
I don't know how people do that.
I don't know. And it's so alarming. It's alarming, right? Because it's like, I feel like that's like the computer like version of like hoarding. That
I agree.
Then like desktop icons is whenever they don't clear out their desktop. I don't know. Maybe I don't know. I hope I'm not hitting anybody in the chat here unintentionally. But yeah, browser tabs and the desktop. I feel like probably 7 to 8 tabs is probably my max. And then at that point, I'm kind of like, I'm exceeding max capacity here.
Gonna make a rift in the space-time continuum if I have more tabs open.
I'm like not gonna know what's going on.
I'm really bad about the desktop icons. Like I have a ton, but like it's not like it's just this unorganized mess on my screen. Like I literally have them sectioned off. Like here's stuff for, you know, video games, and here's, you know, the hacking, and then here's all the miscellaneous stuff, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've never been like super bad with the browser tabs.
Man, I'm gonna strip this story of any identifiable information, but I was helping a friend one time, and they were like, yeah, they were just kind of like not. I was like helping with like a project. Well, we won't get into it. And I see their desktop, and it's completely full by 3 layers. You know how like whenever you like layer an icon and then like something comes up under it. Well, it was like that 3 times, the entire desktop. And it's like pictures, text documents, stuff like that. And I kind of sat there for a moment. Like this is a real thing.
Like had to process it.
No, yes. I sat there and I was just kind of like, stopped doing things. And they were just kind of like, you okay? And I was kind of like, oh my God. Like I kind of freaked out for a second mentally. It was so overwhelming. I don't know.
Had a panic
I got kind of a small brain where it's just like I need it to be simple, or it's like I'm gonna be like, let's focus the attention a little bit. But that was alarming. Yeah,
I probably would have had the same reaction. Like this is a mini stroke, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, denial of service to my eyes. But yeah, kind of going back a bit on Google dorking, I noticed both of you guys said that you don't do it all that much. I feel like I've only done it whenever I'm looking for something like super specific from like a specific site. Would you say that that's kind of really the main implementation for Google dorking, or has that helped you to find, you know, something whenever you're generally like just checking the internet for something like you know, like a how-to or something like that?
I mean, I think a lot of Google dorking would probably more naturally lend itself towards like, hey, finding weird, wacky, sensitive files that like shouldn't be out on the internet. Hey, if you could find Excel files that include, hey, employee information or text files for passwords or crap like that, when it's okay, Google dorking for hacking in that sense. For when it's trying to just do research, I would agree. Hey, it's nice to be able to hone in on one specific site. Stack Overflow, I don't know. Just something like that definitely helps for research and problem solving. But yeah, I again don't use it all that often. Maybe.
Yeah, Meek, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's very situational. Like John was saying, you know, if you're trying to search for, you know, if you know exactly what you're trying to search for, like Google dorking can definitely be, you know, your go-to method. But, you know, like some of the times, like like I said, if you just generally know kind of where you're going at, you know, but like, that's why I just type in, you know, like keywords to see what comes up. And then I'll sift through those links. And then by reading some of those, I might be like, oh, okay, like I'm finding a little bit more information than I was, you know, looking for. But now I can take that information and I can go back into my search and refine it a little bit, you know, and then get a deeper search. You know, you start off kind of broad and then you narrow it down.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Here, real quick, everybody, if you have any questions, pop them in the chat and we'll just kind of work through them if we haven't hit them already. Again, you know, John, thank you so much for jumping on. This has been fabulous.
Hey, I mean, I've been having fun. I hope you guys have.
Absolutely.
Cool.
Absolutely. I kind of want to, I'm so curious about just kind of like, you know, your inspiration on YouTube, because I discovered you not long after I kind of started just being more aware of the cybersecurity space on YouTube. Well, okay, let me back that up. I've been aware of your channel for a while, but I mean, like I started like paying attention, like studying more actively on like the kinds of videos you're making, like probably about a year ago. And it's so interesting because they're so specific, like the kiosk series. I never would have like guessed or come up with that idea organically. Like how do you come up with these things? Do you see, you know, a news story in the wild and you're kind of like, I want to replicate that, or is it literally just like out of thin air that some of these kind of come to you?
Oh, thanks. Yeah. So I mean, some of them I guess are probably more like boring cookie cutter. Hey, let's go do a try hack your room or a hack the box machine or something. Go to some CTF, and that's kind of cool, formulaic content, right? Nothing wrong with that. It's still good. The malware analysis stuff kind of stemmed from the work that I tend to do more now at my day job, alongside with the whole dark web thing. There was a whole lot of really kind of an interesting allure to it because cybersecurity reporters or just people that might not be in the know on maybe everything in the ins and outs of cybersecurity, but trying to make a lot of, hey, what are hacks really look like? What is the allure of the dark web, which sounds so silly. But there's a genuine sense of like education and messaging for people there. So I wanted to, hey, let's go demystify the dark web and some silly stuff like that. I want to do more of those, by the way. That really owes a return. The kiosk video is actually very specific. It came from, we were going to a security conference, and again, this kind of like offshoot of day job. We were going to a security conference where a lot of the attendees aren't super technical. Like they're not going to be slinging code back and forth. They're not firing off 0 days or any elite stuff in the terminal. They can absolutely manage computers and work in IT, but it's like, hey, graphical user interface, Windows stuff. They're not writing Python code in their sleep in the Linux terminal. With that said, we know, like, oh, I want to give them a game. I want to give them a playground, a toy, something that they can do at the booth to help draw people to, hey, come hang out with us, come chat. So I thought, how can I give them a hands-on, like, you get to be on the keyboard, you get to use the mouse and stuff without having them write code or fire off Metasploit stuff. I don't know. So I thought of, okay, what if we had like you do when you're at the library and you see these open computer terminals. Oh, can I open up the command prompt and, I don't know, just be a degenerate for a little bit?
We break the law.
We do that with I don't know, say you're at like the business center of a hotel or something cheesy. You just see, hey, I know that I'm stuck in like this restricted lockdown environment. Maybe all I can do is open a web browser. What if I could open the command prompt, or what if I could open up something that I wasn't supposed to? So that was the idea behind the kiosk series, was like, hey, even if you're stuck in a full screen web application, can we bebop around and do some clever tricks, just clicking on stuff to go open a new application? And I don't know, I had fun with it. I hope folks enjoyed it.
I will say, for one, I haven't had a chance to check out your kiosk stuff yet, but I really, really did enjoy the dark web one.
Nice. Thank you.
Yeah, because like it was like one of those things, like I've never had the gall to jump on there because I just don't know what I'm doing. So I'm just like, when you said you were doing it, I was like, this is kind of like my experience. Like I can sit here and, check it out in a safe environment, and not risk anything to myself or anybody else. But yeah, it was very interesting to see how, and I won't throw too much, like if you haven't watched it, go freaking watch it. But just how basic everything was. That was what kind of threw me off, because we're so used to going on Google and seeing these elaborate websites with all this, the fancy, just graphics and, everything. And then you jump on there and you're like, wow.
And we're like laughing at it, making fun of it. Like, this is so stupid. It was fun.
Like this is it. Like, there's a reason behind it. Find out, watch the video.
There's like, it kind of makes me think of that scene in Madagascar where you have those penguins that are like so eager to go back to Antarctica, and then it like cuts to them there and they're like just standing around. They're like, well, this sucks. Like, that's like the dark web for people interested in finding it. It's like you do all this like research, you finally like, you get on, you're like, oh, cool. Like, here we go. What? Like, what? Is it true though, that if you go onto the dark web, you are marked for death?
I don't know. I know.
Dang it. Okay. I was going to try to freak somebody out.
You're the man.
It's probably better to dispel that one. Well, we have one question from Colonel Panic that is pretty good. What do tools, VMs, or what tools, I guess, VMs or labs you recommend for someone wanting to get started with digital forensics and malware reverse engineering?
Ooh, super good question. Thank you. I have way too many virtual machines, to be honest. Like I try to have like the silly powerhouse PC to just, hey, how many different Windows versions and operating systems and Linux stuff can I run, just to like see how things look in different environments. But the root of your question is, okay, what kind of tooling and virtual machines should we use? I don't know if you're familiar with the Flare VM. I think it's the FireEye something. maybe I'm totally going to get that acronym wrong, but it's reverse engineering, analyzing malware and all. Remnux on the Linux side. Flare VM is Windows and showcasing, hey, some tooling and stuff you could use in a Windows operating system. But Remnux, the reverse engineering malware Linux distribution, does a similar thing on the Linux side. If you poke around in their documentation and like their tooling, you can see, okay, what sort of applications and what software ships with this thing. It'll show you and kind of open your eyes to some really, really cool new file and like programs you can run. A TRID is a cool replacement when you might think of, oh, we just run the file command. You can use stuff like floss when you might think of the super silly strings command. And then if you wanted to, hey, if you're cruising into like Ghidra, if you're cruising into like a debugger, WinDebug, any of those, it's a huge wide world, I will admit. So I don't know if I could be able to compress the answer right in right there. But the way you will certainly get your feet wet and start to dive in is with Remnux and the Flare VM, without a doubt.
I love it. That's good. Yeah, that's good. We have another question here from Chris Cullen. Is there any value in taking the SC200 exam from Microsoft? It's for a SOC analyst. But is it going to get looked at less favorably than, say, the CYSA Plus?
I will be totally honest and transparent in that I don't have either of those. I haven't taken that training or gone after that certification. And I'll be, once again, totally truthful that maybe I'll fall on my sword here. I'm not familiar with the SC200 exam from Microsoft and that certification. With that said, I will probably help answer the question in that regard, and that, hey, I do know what CISA or CISA is, however you want to pronounce it, and one of that certifications, and I know that is pretty well received and well looked upon. So I truthfully would lean more towards CISA plus, but that's not to say, hey, we're trivializing that one from Microsoft. I think that, again, that's got to be super valuable. Probably. I wish I knew more. But if it's learning, if it's education, if it's something to help bolster your career, it can't not be a good thing.
This might be a hot button topic. Listen to me, going after these things. But whenever it comes to certifications, is there one that you see a lot of people kind of running straight towards it? Maybe the industry's probably done, some messaging trying to say that, don't do that. But are there any certifications that you see a lot of people flocking to that maybe is not going to get them exactly what they think it will?
Yes, and I have to think you might be alluding to one.
Not actually, not well. Actually, now that I actually think a moment, then yes. But actually, before, not really.
I don't know. So I have a certification called the CEH, or the Certified Ethical Hacker, that I got because I thought I was supposed to, because I thought everyone said you should, right? At the time, which was years ago, it was only a multiple choice exam. I think they've now put in a hands-on practical application portion, but I never took it and I'm not familiar with it. Maybe it's good. But again, just being painfully truthful, I don't hold a whole lot of water to the certifications that are just multiple choice, rote memorization, data dump. I really, really like those practical hands-on application based ones. Not to say there is still certainly a place for some of those multiple choice tests. But I know there is a certain amount of lure around the CEH that I mentioned earlier, but it might not be what you're looking for. There's not a whole lot of wood behind that arrow. So,
Gotcha. I'm forgetting the document that the government uses that basically lists off a bunch of certifications that are good. And a lot of, it's kind of easy to look at that documentation and kind of just base that or use that as like a framework to start targeting different certifications. Do you have like another framework that you use to kind of identify useful and helpful certifications as an alternative to that?
So when I used to kind of be in that Govy and military side and the Fed side, I believe it was DoD 8570.
Yeah,
I think it has now changed to DoD 8140, but I might be getting those numbers wrong. And they would kind of categorize and break down all these different levels. And I know that I needed to be, for the work that I was doing, like at least IAT level 2, which meant that I needed to get my security plus. So I went and did that. And that might help you if you listening in want to pour into that side of the industry, right? Maybe explore those, Google around for those numbers and what those standards are. To be honest, I don't think I have another one that I gauge off of. I just kind of I go for the stuff that I'm interested in and the stuff that I like and I want to learn more about. And I would totally advocate for that for anyone listening in. If you don't know, or you say, oh, what certification should I go after? Do the stuff you enjoy. Do stuff that you're passionate about and really interested in.
That's good. And I'm glad you kind of mentioned going back in time a little bit to earlier in your career, because we have a question from Rizzy Rex. That is an awesome name.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. Knowing what you know now, if you went back to the very beginning of your journey in cybersecurity, what would you approach your learning and development differently at all? Where would you start or focus?
Ooh, you are going to hate this answer from me. I will. So I wish, there are a lot of other, infosec Twitter and cybersecurity Twitter conversations like, oh, what about my career path? Like, do I need to go work help desk and like IT security or like a specialist? Should I be installing Ethernet cables and putting printers in and trying to be a sysadmin before I move into cybersecurity? And some people say like, oh yeah, do your time, do some of those jobs. And that, because it's great to help lay the foundation for what you do in security. And again, not meaning to trivialize any of those roles, not meaning to point fingers or anything. It's just different. It's just different. It's in security versus, system administration and orchestrating an organization. I really wish that I had a little bit more time in that sysadmin role or that help desk role, because I'm missing a lot of that knowledge. And I'll be, again, painfully truthful with that. It's, I'm not super good in an Active Directory environment or knowing all of the different kinds of software that real businesses might use for what they do for whatever operations. I just got into elite hacking, throwing vulnerabilities and exploit scripts and trying to see what would blow up where. And I feel like I'm missing some of those things. So if folks are listening in and are in that role, totally take advantage of it, because I don't know. I wish I got a little bit more learning and foundation in that help desk and sysadmin lifestyle.
That's that's an interesting answer, and I like it. I hear, I've seen John Breath as an example, another
Totally.
Guy that you might know of. He kind of advocates for that kind of pipeline just because it builds that kind of ground level familiarization before you get into the security side. I have like a help desk internship, and then like a brief stint, kind of doing not necessarily security, but just like kind of all like the tech networking stuff at like a really small company. I was kind of like their only dude, right? So it was like doing all of it, right? And I feel like that really helped me understand on the security side where I fit in. And that's kind of helped me going forward from here. Like, I mean, context wise, in the grand scheme of things, especially in the bigger environments you end up in, what's going on and what role that you play. That's good. Make, do you have any thoughts on that? Or also, and how would you, if you were to go back in time, start over?
I will say, and I know if Raven's listening to this, which I know he probably will either right now or later, he was always one that advocated kind of the same thing, like do your due diligence in help desk. Then instead of jumping just straight into security, like what I did, spend some time working as a sysadmin to really understand, the infrastructure and everything and how servers work and all that other stuff. Because I literally went from help desk for 3 years and then jumped straight into information security analyst. And even now, like I'm obviously like I'm very fortunate to be able to learn a ton on the job. But like John, like you were saying, like there's just certain things that like I feel like I'm missing that I probably would have gained and a better understanding for had I been in a sysadmin role before this. So, yeah.
That's good. Well, everybody, if you have any questions, quick pop them in the chat. But we'll probably wind down here in just a moment. But we'll kind of and on a bit of a lighter note with like killing burnout. You mentioned video games. So you said Super Smash Brothers is one. Is that kind of like your go-to? Do you have any other games that you kind of work with?
So yeah, that's probably one of my go-tos. I will admit, so I used to do some cheesy Call of Duty stuff, but now I just got a Nintendo Switch, right? So I'll dabble with a little bit of Super Smash Brothers. I also have a guilty pleasure for Rocket League, not gonna lie. I'll play with some Animal Crossing. Yeah, no hate. The new Pokemon Arceus is kind of cool. Arceus, I don't know. But definitely switched back to the Nintendo side rather than the first person shooter Call of Duty Halo stuff. So maybe I don't know, immatured. I don't know.
No. You immature when you start doing stuff like me, where I went back to playing not Pokemon, but Yu-Gi-Oh! On PC.
That's a very niche one, I will say. Yeah.
See, I can't even. I guess I can't even like say anything about game immaturity. I feel like I'll kind of oscillate from like realistic like milsims like Squad to like Minecraft. So it's like I can't. What can I really say? You know what I mean?
Hey, Minecraft has its place. No
yeah, Log4j, it's great. it's lit. Yeah.
Well, sweet guys, this was a ton of fun.
Yeah, this was great. Thank you so much for jumping on. Everybody that's watching, thank you so much for watching.